Hi, Emma. Welcome to our Tier Speaker Series. Thank you for joining us today. Just to get us started, can you please tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about Stella's Place as well?
For sure, yeah. So my name is Emma and I work as an access counselor navigator at Stella's. I've been there a little over 2 years at this point. And so what an access counselor navigator means is right now I head up our brief counseling and navigation program, co-facilitating with two other staff. And that program helps to provide brief counseling services as well as resource navigation to either organizations like Stella's or organizations such as Stella's internal navigation. So we do both in that program. And then I also work on our Beanbag Chat app, which is our anonymous texting app for folks so they can receive counselor support Monday to Thursday, 4 to 9 p.m. And Stella's is a non-for-profit that works to offer mental health resources to youth ages 16 to 29.
How does mental health stigma intersect with forms of discrimination and prejudice such as racism, ableism, sexism, just to name a few?
It's already so vulnerable when you ask for mental health assistance, right? Like reaching out in just a vacuum, asking for mental health help is already so vulnerable. And then you add on those other intersectionalities like you mentioned, and it becomes a lot scarier for folks to ask for help. And obviously there's barriers to that as well. So maybe things like not being taken seriously in certain environments, not being believed, not having your cultural worldview understood or valued. Obviously like outward discrimination, even microaggressions, or something like not seeing yourself represented in the staff that are delivering the programs or the help. Not having access to technology to access programs or not being able to travel to access programs. So there's really so many layers to it.
How does mental health stigma affect the way mental health and mental illness are portrayed on media and popular culture?
Yeah, media is a huge one. Like it can be, I feel like so helpful, but also can be really unhelpful. And for a lot of young folks, I feel myself included, it's sometimes your first experience learning about mental health or your first exposure to mental health is through movies, TV shows, TikTok, Instagram, people sharing their stories, which can be positive or negative depending on what you're consuming. So I think, it could be a really powerful tool to see yourself represented in media or see a story that resonates represented, but it could be also triggering. I feel like we're seeing a lot of like romanticizing mental illness in media sometimes, which can be really negative, or, really over dramatizing certain aspects of the mental health journey or mental health support. So that can be really negative. But at Stella's, we typically run each year the Get Real Film Fest, and we partner with TIFF, and we kind of help young people produce their own movies to tell their own stories about their experience with mental health. So I feel like that's kind of using the media in a positive way, which I think if we see more of that, it's definitely going to be more helpful than maybe just as it is now.
There's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to mental health and mental illness. Can you name some common misconceptions, and can you actually challenge them for us?
Maybe my top favorite myth to bust is that high-functioning folks can't be suffering from mental health struggles or challenges. Just because someone can hold down a job, pay their rent, they on the outside appear put together, doesn't mean they're not struggling and doesn't mean they don't need, help or to be taken seriously. Another one for me is that I think the idea that mental health or mental challenges, struggles need to be cured so that you can live a full life. I think a lot of folks find a lot of freedom in acceptance and being able to realize you can live a full life and also be receiving mental health care, or also still in that journey while still doing the things you enjoy and doing the things you love and having meaningful connections and relationships. You don't have to cure it or banish it. And the last one, I think for me, is that the Eurocentric or Western way of treating mental health works for everybody, which it doesn't. There's some really wonderful modalities like DBT and CBT, which are incredibly helpful, but they don't always fit everybody, right? And so kind of bringing in different perspectives of what might be helpful for this person. Is it medication? Is it talk therapy? Is it spending time in nature? Is it peer support? Is it faith-based support? There's so many different types of support for mental health, and we really can't do a one-size-fits-all.
So have you noticed some common barriers when it comes to accessing mental health supports in Toronto?
Yeah, I think that kind of relates back to the second question, where all those intersectionalities can create barriers for folks. Like we mentioned, maybe I think in Toronto, there's often a disproportional amount of BIPOC services, like there's not enough BIPOC services for folks. So that can be a barrier of feeling like not safe to access a service or not feeling represented to access a service. And as we spoke about as well, especially with the pandemic, I think access to technology is a big one. When programs were virtual, if folks didn't have like a laptop or a phone or an internet connection that's secure, if they're experiencing housing insecurity, it could be really hard to access help. And vice versa, if it's only in person and they have maybe issues with mobility or travel, that can be a barrier as well. And also price, right? Mental health care is very pricey. And for folks that are not covered under OHIP, even seeing a doctor or getting medication can be out of pocket, very expensive. So that's something, at least at Stella's, all of our programs are free to help with mitigating some of that. And the B&C program that I spoke about earlier is a low wait list program to try to address those issues. But those are definitely the biggest barriers I see for sure.
How can we challenge those barriers as a community and normalize more conversations about mental health awareness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like that's kind of what we're doing today in a way where it's the cross-pollination is like how I like to call it. I picture bees, but the idea that we're sharing resources and we're keeping the conversation open about, what resources do I have that might be useful for clients in your demographic or in your catchment area, vice versa, sharing those resources and also bringing in folks to speak on different aspects of mental health that maybe isn't represented in a single organization or a single team. I think that's definitely a good start.
So practicing self-care is crucial for managing our mental health and well-being. What are some ways you practice self-care?
Yeah, self-care, I think that has looked different in different phases of my life, but right now, definitely spending time in nature and with animals, those are my big two, especially after a day at the office or, a day doing, like desk work. That's the place I go to unwind for sure. But in the past, talk therapy or medication has been helpful. So it really just depends on like what season I'm in my life, but right now, nature's up there for sure.
Can you share some resources where youth can go access in Toronto and the GTA if they are struggling with their mental health?
Definitely, yeah, and it will depend on what they're looking for. So I'll give a little bit of a breakdown. If they're looking for maybe just dipping their toe into this kind of thing and maybe just want to connect briefly, the Beanbag Chat app at Stella's is great. It's free. You can download it on your phone. Or Kids Help Phone is another useful one if you're just looking to have a brief conversation. In terms of crisis support, Gerstein's crisis line is always helpful to call them. And that's another way to just have a brief connection with someone, whether that's over text or on the phone. And then if folks are looking for more free services in the area, I would look at things like Family Services Toronto, CMHA, those are good resources. CAMH does have some inpatient and outpatient programs if you're looking for that more structured inpatient, outpatient type of help. Stella's Place also has some great drop-in programs as well as some waitlist programs and the B&C program. So obviously Stella's Place is a great place to go, drop by, see the cafe. And if you're just looking for kind of a, just to kind of browse all the resources in the area, 211 is a good website to consult because you can look up kind of what community organizations are in your area, something like Loft or Parkdale or LAMP Community Services. You can see just what's in your area, what catchment area you're a part of, and see what services they have through 211.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all that information. That was a great chat. We really appreciate you for taking the time and joining us today and sharing all your knowledge on mental health awareness. We really appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you.